Hey y'all, it's Katie. Welcome back to From My Vanity and welcome to another Palette Palooza, this time for March. As always, I really look forward to these Palette Paloozas. I think they are so much fun to just sit down and to be able to talk about all the palettes that I tried from this past month and let you know my thoughts on them. Last month I went ahead and did it in a ranking style where I talked about my least favorite leading all the way up to my most favorites, kind of like a little countdown, and you guys really seem to enjoy that, so we're going to do that again today. I do want to throw out there that I am still sick. I do have a cold, so I'm so sorry if I sound kind of nasally or sniffly or look like I'm squinting, trying not to sneeze here. It's because I am, but I really do need to get this filmed so that I can edit it and get it ready for going live this week. As you're seeing this should be on Wednesday. I am trying to put out a video every day this week. So if you're new here or missed Monday's video, yeah, I'm doing a video every day this week. So yeah, I didn't try as many palettes as I did last month. I think I had 6 palettes. One was a quad, but they were 6 different products to talk about. This month I only have 4, but I have really well thought of and really rounded reviews on them. Let's go ahead and jump right into it and talk about my least favorite. Now I do want to throw out there, just because I'm ranking them like this is my least favorite leading all the way up to my favorite, it doesn't mean that the least favorite is bad. I just had 4 palettes and I had to rank them in some way, and maybe it's the quality of the palette or my preferences, but it landed in this order. So I hope I'm able to explain myself well in my reviews so that that can be a help to you guys in deciding if these palettes are good for you and not just so much the ranking, because it's just a fun way to share my reviews with you. I don't like... just because this palette's in 4th place doesn't mean it's terrible. I hope that makes sense. But anyway, the 4th palette, the one I put in 4th place, is the Prism Makeup Supreme Chaos palette. I had a lot of high expectations for this palette. For one, it's just so pretty and it's so nicely done. It very much reminds me of the Bad Habit palettes. Prism Makeup, as far as I know, is just like the Bad Habit brand in that they dupe high-end palettes. And Prism, if you didn't know, as much as I know and who contacted me, is owned by Juno Co, who made that little like microfiber sponge. They owned it and started this Prism brand where they dupe palettes. So this one is what it looks like. This, honestly, I have the hardest time trying to figure out what palette it's duping, but I think it might be the Huda palettes. One thing I noticed that I struggled with this is that there are only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mattes. I hope I wasn't out of frame. There's only 6 mattes and there are so many shimmer and metallic formulas in here, and I struggled a lot trying to use all of these different types of metallics without having the same old boring type of crease and outer corner color. And also, to add to that, like, unless you wanted to go like a really pink in your outer corner, if you wanted to deepen it up at all, you only had the green to work with. But overall, I just felt like it was very limiting when it came to the matte shadows and the different types of looks you could create. And then add to that all these shimmers. I know I'm going to be throwing up swatches, but there's just a lot of repetitiveness. For example, there's this purple right here, and then there's this purple right here. Really, the only difference between them is that one is more sheer and duochrome, and the other one's more intense purple pigment type of shimmer. But when you have a palette filled with so many of those, like here are these 2 pinky tone shades. This was a really bright pink, this was a bit darker. This was more of like a bronzy type of color, but then also this was also that bronzy type of color. And then what else? Oh, this is kind of like a purple bluish color, but this is also like a bluish color. There was just a lot of shades in here that were very similar, and really the only difference is one was like a true blue and the other one was like a multi-chrome or duochrome, whatever you call, and more of a sheer color, kind of like a topper type of shade. And while that's all fine and dandy, I don't know, I felt like it just limited me, I felt like, a little bit with the variety of looks I could get with this palette. Because when you first look at it, you're like, oh my goodness, so many beautiful looks you can create with this. But then when you actually look at it and you're creating looks, it's like, huh, those kind of all look the same. So I guess I'm trying to say is that I feel like there's just a lot of unnecessary shades in here, and they could have taken out half or at least like a third of these shadows and still gotten the same great palette, and you wouldn't have so much repetitiveness going on in there. But even with that, again, there's still that limitation with the mattes. You just don't have a ton of variety, and if you're someone who really depends on mattes or likes mattes to help you, change up your crease, your outer corner, that might be an issue. For me, when I am testing out a palette, I really try to see kind of the scale that I can do with a palette. Like, what is the variety of looks can I get? Can I get really neutral? Can I get really crazy? Can I mix up the colors kind of thing? And for me, trying to do that with this palette, I did feel a little bit limited. Moving on to the quality of these eyeshadows, I thought they were okay. I feel like I liked the quality of this less than I liked the first Prism palette that I tried, and that one was called the, oh my goodness, this Full Spectrum or Spectrum palette. I think it was just called the Spectrum palette. But anyway, it was supposed to be a dupe for the ABH Prism palette. I feel like I enjoyed the mattes and the shimmers in that palette more than I did in here. Something I noticed is, especially with this yellow, but they were just a lot more sheer and took a whole lot more building up to actually get it. You guys have probably already seen by now from the swatches, but this yellow is just so dusty. Like, it's hard to actually swatch. It's hard to actually get it to show up on your arm, and it's hard to get it to blend into your eye and stay there. Like, I felt like I was always having to go back in and put more in the crease to try to get this yellow to show up, and that was just a bit frustrating, especially since I had another palette that I was trying out this month that the yellow is absolutely gorgeous and takes no work at all, and I have other yellows in my collection where the yellow doesn't take as much work to build up. But overall, I feel like also, you know, the peach shade also took a good bit of building up. This was actually very neon type of red and reminded me of the one in the Riviera palette, but these two were okay. They didn't take as much building up, but they are more intense, brighter colors, so you don't really expect them to take that much work. The green was okay, but I did have more than one occasion where I felt like the outer corner looked patchy, or I just had to work harder to get it blended out, so that I'm not crazy about that shadow. And then as for the shimmers in this palette, they were nice, but again, they really did remind me of the Bad Habit formula because they are so soft and silicone-y. If you kind of went in too hard, you could have a mess on your hands because they could end up transferring too thick and then flaking off on it and falling on your, you know, under eyes throughout the day and leaving like bald patches on your eyes. I only really had that happen one time, and it was honestly more my fault. I had put down glitter glue, which makes it a little tackier and a little easier for that to happen, and I put too much on my brush and went into it. But I did notice when I took a flat brush, only took a little bit at a time, it didn't really give me that much issues, but it is something that you could easily get out of hand. Be careful if you are someone who struggles with getting too much on your eye and you don't like how it emphasizes all the little crevices and creases in your eyes and then how it falls and chunks off throughout the day. This can happen, but if you're careful, not so much. If you're someone who uses your finger, I feel like that'll make it even easier. But yeah, overall, I felt like the quality of this was just so-so. It was nice, it was decent, it didn't blow me out the water, and I don't love it more than the other Prism palette that I tried, which was the Spectrum palette. So yes, it's affordable. If you want these colors and you don't have them in your collection, you might have to work for it, but you can get some really gorgeous looks. So that's kind of why this landed in the 4th spot, and it's just, when I think about this palette, it was just okay. Okay, so moving on to 3rd place, it is the Anastasia Beverly Hills Riviera palette. And again, kind of like with the other one of the biggest reasons that this is in the 3rd spot and, you know, lost out to the other two that I'll talk about next is because of how limiting this palette was when it came to the matte shadows. Or I should say matte shadows that had enough variety to create different types of looks. When you look at this, like, it looks so colorful and fun, but when you actually sit down to create a look with it, the pink and the purple are the most intense and most colorful and most fun type of matte shadows that you can use. You have a deep brown to deepen things up, but then this shade and this shade, especially these three, are all like very light, very neutral, and not anything crazy different from most any other palette. So if you're wanting to get this look to create a lot of really fun, colorful, vibrant, spring themed look, or, you know, for summer or whatever, you're going to be basically creating just purples and pinks if you're wanting to go very vivid and bright with your colors. If that's something you like, this is the palette for you. But for me, especially with this really fun blue in here and then this yellow, I was wanting more vibrant mattes to work with. I really wish they would have done like a very bright, really nice blue, like not a deep blue, but like a bright blue. I feel like that would have been really pretty, especially to mix with these silvers and whatnot. I feel like that could have created some really pretty looks. And then these two shadows are just so similar. I feel like you could have had one or the other and swapped one of these out for that blue to really make it pop and stand out and just give you a bit more variety and difference between your looks and be able to create more with it. I will say that I did like how fun and vibrant this was and how creative it was, but you could still get a very neutral look. There was one day that I created a super neutral look by just sticking to like these tones, the brown in the crease, and then I think it was the gold on the lid. And I felt like it looked just like a typical everyday neutral eye look. So I think that's neat that she kind of mixed the two together. Didn't overwhelm this with neutrals, but if you're someone who is deep into color and just loves creating as many different types of looks as you can from one palette, I feel like you're going to be a little disappointed in this palette. And then also just with these two silvers really quick, I feel like, yes, they're different. You can tell this one's more blue, this one's more silver, but on your eyes, I don't know. I just feel like that was, again, kind of a waste. You could have had one or the other and switched out for something else. But anyway, besides the color story and having my little gripes with that, I felt like the quality of this was nice, but a little tricky. And specifically with this purple, I did not enjoy using this purple. I'll go ahead and stick a clip right here. This is what I ended up with, and I was so frustrated. I had to go and reach for another purple and another palette, use some concealer and fix it up because I kept trying with all my might to get that purple to stick to those bare spots, but I could not, no matter how hard I tried, and it was so frustrating. And I finally got that look to work and whatnot and moved on with my day, but I couldn't believe how much I was struggling to get that purple to stick. So the next day I went in and I used a bigger, more fluffy brush and I blended it in very lightly and just slowly built it up, and then it was working fine. So that is definitely something to note if you're someone who likes to do that packing motion as well. Maybe you were struggling with this palette. Try using a bigger, fluffier brush and doing more of a gentle and like a softer and slower build up, and just kind of take a little bit at a time, blend it in, go back for a little more, blend it in, diffuse it really well, and then just slowly build it up. That's the method that I had to use in order to get that purple to work and not appear so patchy. I did create a first impressions look, which was the first time I used the palette. I'll leave that linked up here, and I thought that the outer corner looked a little patchy then, and then the second day I couldn't believe how patchy it looked. So from then on out, after that second look, I never tried to use that purple with the packing motion, and it worked just fine. There was once or twice where it was sticking a little bit, but just a little bit of extra blending, and it worked. So definitely something to note, that purple is very tricky. Something I noticed, especially with these vibrant colors here and then this deep pearly color here, it's a very dry formula. Like, you touch it and you almost don't expect anything to come off on your finger because it's packed in there so hard and it feels so very dry. But when you take your finger off, it has a lot of pigment, but it's definitely a drier type of formula. These shimmers are nice. I do have to use glitter glue because if not, within 2 hours, I would say this is all up in my crease. I used glitter glue just underneath it and it was fine. I felt like it probably got me 4 or 5 hours before starting to transfer, but a trick I did was to put glitter glue underneath, apply these shadows, and then just tap a bit of glitter glue. And the glitter glue that I use for when I go on top is the MBA Foil Glitter and Liner FX. This stuff, it's clear, so, and it's like water almost, so it's really easy to just go on top and tap over it. But doing that, I noticed that it didn't transfer at all, so I was very impressed with that. So I was very happy that I found a way to do a nice half cut crease and not, get transfer and ruin the cut crease within an hour or two. So just something to note there with the shimmers, but they are really pretty and nice to work with. This white has got to be one of the most intense whites that I've ever used. It is very pretty. What palette had a white in it recently that I used? I did a first impressions with a palette. I don't know if it's up yet. If it is, I'll link it up here. If not, it's coming soon. But it had a white in it, and I noticed it wasn't anywhere near as pigmented as this. If you use this to brighten up your inner corner, even though it's just a matte, I was impressed by how much it brightens because it's so pigmented that it almost looks like you have a really intense shimmer in your inner corner, even though it's just a matte white. I was very impressed, and that was my favorite way to use this white, is just to brighten up my inner corner, and I really did enjoy that. So overall, do I recommend this? I would say if you are someone who loves color and has a lot of colorful palettes, I don't really think you're going to need this, or you're not going to enjoy it if you were to get it. Something I really noticed, and maybe this is because I just tried it the previous month, if you were eyeing this palette for those pops of color, like this shimmer right here and the hot pink and the purple, a palette that I feel like could easily dupe that, not exactly, but close enough, is the Juvia's Place Zulu palette. I just tried this past month, and when I pulled this out, like, it just kept reminding me of this palette. And I'll go ahead and stick up swatches. I swatched the pink, the purple, the brown, because I thought they looked similar, and then that shimmer greenish color there. And I feel like they look pretty darn close except for the browns. The browns are definitely different. The Juvia's one is more of a warm red, and then the ABH is definitely more of a cool tone purpley red. So the browns are definitely different. Ignore them. But look at the other shades in here. I feel like they're pretty identical. So if you have this palette and you are eyeing this palette for those fun pops of color, just use your Juvia's Place palette and grab a neutral palette, and I feel like you'll be able to create almost any look that the ABH palette can create. Just something to consider. I figured I would throw out there since I did think of that palette and do think that they're pretty good dupes for those pops of colors in the Riviera palette. But overall, do I recommend this palette? I feel like I already said this, but I'm trying to wrap it up and wrap my thoughts of this is just an okay palette to me. I am going to keep it. I have a lot of other ABH palettes. I do think this is a nice formula. I did enjoy the types of looks that I could get from it, but overall I was just a little underwhelmed with this being such a colorful palette for how limited that I felt. Like, I felt like I could only do so much with this palette. So I don't know, I think if you're someone who is super into neutrals and you want to explore color, this would be a great palette to get because it lets you do that while still staying very safe and very comfortable. If you're someone who doesn't like to change up your crease color, you're super into the pinks, to the purples, then I think you'll like this. If you're someone who tends to pack on into the outer corner and doesn't like to change up your techniques, I feel like you'll you'll run into a lot of trouble with this palette, especially with that purple. And if you're someone who has a super colorful and already large type of eyeshadow collection with very bright colors in it, I feel like this isn't going to add anything new to your collection. So I feel like that kind of sums up my thoughts on it. I think it's an okay palette, and it kind of just lands in the middle for me this month because of that, and just because of the care you have to take when doing looks with this palette to make sure you don't, you don't mess it up. Moving on to my number 3 palette, this is going to be Flower Beauty Suns Blazing. Now I'm going to admit that this palette and the next palette, I struggled to try to figure out which one came on top and which one came in second place, but I finally landed on this one just because of a couple of reasons, which we're going to get into. But overall, I think this is a gorgeous palette, and it didn't lose first spot by much. Like, it was a very close first and second. I wanted to make both of them just first place because I love them both so much. But this palette is just so beautiful, and it just has a gorgeous color story. If you love oranges and yellows, you need this in your life. I absolutely loved every look that I created with this. I took this on vacation with me when I had to go down south for a little bit. I think we were gone a little under a week, and this is the only palette I took. And I felt like I could get really simple, easy, quick looks, but I could also go really colorful and really not complicated, but really fun and creative and bright and vibrant with this palette as well. This yellow is such a bright yellow. I absolutely loved it. And when you touch it, it feels like butter. I cannot get over how soft these shadows are. They almost feel like a cream. They're so soft. You guys are going to see swatches on the screen right now, but I just think it swatches so beautifully. I had so much fun with this palette, and I think that while it's a little bit high, and I don't think that this little brush, which I lost, I'm sorry, the brush is nice, but I don't think it's worth $6, and I wish they would have just left it out and made it $6 cheaper. But it's a nice little blending brush to get in your palette, and you can get some good use out of it if you don't lose it like I did. But I feel like if you can wait for a good sale, this is a phenomenal palette to have. One thing I did notice when I was using this and creating looks with it is that the formula kind of reminded me of the Maybelline Lemonade palette, and just how soft and creamy it is. And it kind of got me thinking. I was like, uh-oh, like, I wonder if I'll hit pan as easily as I did with the Maybelline palette. And I actually went and tried to dig my brush into it. Not dig, but like I sat there and tapped it for a while, kind of like I did the Maybelline one. And while there is a significant dip, it definitely didn't hit pan. It's not as soft as the Maybelline. The Maybelline was so soft, like if you pushed too hard into the pan, like it would just kind of all crumble away. At least for me in the palette that I got, I think I remember tapping into it for like 17 seconds and I hit pan with the Maybelline one. I did about the same, like 20 seconds or so with this palette, and it's just got a significant dip in this top one here. It's a significant dip, but there's no pan, and I don't think there's pan anytime soon, and I don't want to continue ruining this palette trying to see if I can hit pan or not. But it was just something I noticed, that I felt like the formula felt the same as the Maybelline one. I definitely think this Flower Beauty one performs better and is more pigmented than the Maybelline one. The Maybelline felt the same, but it was just so sheer. It took a lot of building up. This, while, as you work with it, maybe you have to build it up a little bit, but it packs a punch pretty much right from the get-go. You can watch my first impressions if you want to see. I used a lot of the yellows and oranges because that's just what my eye was drawn to. But yeah, overall, I was very impressed with this palette, and it is definitely a palette that I just want to hold on to and create even more looks with it, because I'm just so into the yellows and oranges that this palette is just like sunshine to me whenever I look at it and want to create looks with it. It's just so beautiful. But one thing I do want to point out is someone made a comment, I think on the first impressions video, saying like, oh, that's very pretty, but I don't think I need it because I have the Yes Please palette and they look very similar. And I was like, oh my gosh, you're right. Like, that does remind me of the Yes Please palette. I didn't even think about it when I got this, but it really does. Here's the Yes Please palette. And before this video, I went ahead and swatched them both side by side. And they do look pretty darn similar, kind of like somebody copied their homework kind of thing, like that similar. There are more shades in, I think, this palette than this one, but besides that, like, there's a shimmery yellow, there's a matte yellow, there's a matte orange. I think if I had to pick a favorite, I would pick the Flower Beauty one, because I like how this is a true yellow, this is a true orange, this is a true yellow shimmer type of shade, whereas this one, I feel like this almost leans like a little bright peachy side of things, and this is more of a, I don't know, like a reddish yellowish orangish type of shimmer. This yellow is a true matte yellow, but this shimmery yellow, I remember it just being so crappy, like, oh my goodness, like it just puffs everywhere, it doesn't want to stick kind of thing. It's not a very good shimmer at all. So overall, I just felt like, if you're trying to decide between these two, maybe you've always been eyeing this, maybe just pick this up and leave the Yes Please palette alone, because I just felt like this was just, I like this one. From what I remember, I like this one more than this one. Maybe I'll do a video of like kind of trying to create the same looks on each eye and it's not really a dupe because they're both affordable. They're both drugstore, but maybe I can do like who did it better type of video and do an eye look on each and kind of see, because it has been a while since I used this palette, but I don't know. Overall, I just thought I would share that with you. If you do have the Yes Please palette, you might not need this palette because they are so very similar. But for me, I'm not getting rid of any of these palettes because I am that crazy about my yellows and oranges. And if I had to pick one, if I had to get rid of one, which I'm not, but if I had to get rid of one, I think I would get rid of the ColourPop one and keep this one because I just enjoyed it so much. The formula is so buttery smooth. It is so pigmented, and if you can't tell, I really enjoyed it. One thing I wish is that they had taken out one of these colors right here, like this or this, because I feel like they're just, you know, kind of the typical neutral type of shades. This is just a bit darker than this one. I wish they had removed it and instead put in a really bright type of inner corner highlight that was very shimmery. Not white, but almost like a cream, because this definitely, it's a more of a darker type of cream shade for me. Like, it works in my brow bone, but I feel like it makes it just a touch darker. And for me, when I'm wanting to put a matte in my brow bone, I want it to brighten it a little bit more, not really stick to my same skin tone, if that makes sense to you. So I really wish they had one more shade in here that was a really good shade that I could use to brighten my inner corner, because that was the one thing that I felt like was lacking with this palette. I had so much fun and I got a nice variety. Considering this is such a yellow and orange themed palette, I did get a lot of more neutral, more mauve toned eye looks, and I thought it was very pretty. And like I said, you could kind of go all out and do a more complicated look that was very bright, sunny, and colorful. Well, colorful in the yellow and orange spectrum, or you could keep it very simple and do something kind of like everyday neutral type of look. So overall, I think you guys get the gist by now. I really enjoyed this palette. I think it is amazing. Alright, then on to the last one. This is the one that won the top spot for this month. This is my #1 favorite. It is what is on my eyes today, and it is Lethal Cosmetics Hive Collection. This little baby right here, I eyed it so hard when it came out. I think it came out in the fall of last year, but I missed the release and it was like out of stock. And anytime I checked on it, 1 or 2 of the colors were out of stock and I couldn't get the whole collection, so I kept waiting. And finally it was restocked, and I was initially just going to get these colors, these 3, and then like this shade, I think, or maybe it was this shade, one of them. But I put them in my cart just as a singles. It was like 4 or 5 shadows, and I remember it being like $10 cheaper than just getting all of this and the palette with it. So I was like, Katie, just get the whole palette and pay like $10, $15 more. So I ended up just getting the whole palette and just keeping the whole palette because I wanted to kind of get the feel for the collection that they put together here. And I think they did a phenomenal job with the collection. I love how interesting it is and how different. I feel like it's very different from most type of color stores you put together, because there's definitely a big feel for the greens and the mossy tones here, but then you have this blue and orangish shade, but then you also have like the purple and mauve tones to get a very purple mauvey look. And like I said, very impressed with this. I thought it was totally beautiful. But then also you could get a super simple look with this very typical type of, you know, bronzy shade, and then that in the outer crease, and you have a very neutral look. This is the most intense inner corner highlight. Wowza, it looks absolutely gorgeous. I have it on, you know, as my inner corner today. I didn't reapply or anything before sitting down to do this video, and it's been on for, let's see, it's been on for 5 hours. And I feel like it's definitely there. I definitely like wiped my eyes. I told you I'm sick. I got a runny nose. My eyes are watering. I'm messing with them and it's still there. It just packs such a punch. It is gorgeous. And yeah, I'm just so impressed with the color story that they put together, because I remember seeing this collection and going like, no, I really only want these shades down here and maybe the orange, and I'm good. Like everything else just, I don't know, I wasn't sure what I would do with it. But then since I got the whole collection, I was like, let me try and get what they were going with when they put this collection together, and I get it. There's just such a variety with this. You're still keeping to that more neutral, more earthy, I should say, not really neutral, but like the earthy tones when you come to this palette. But I absolutely love that. Like I really like, this is like my type of neutral. Like I like being able to have these, you know, more pops of color and bright colors, but still have a lot of other earthy type of tones. That is my comfort zone. That is what I like when I'm not wanting to go like neon bright colors on my eyes. I really like this when it comes to my neutrals. So for that reason right there, that's another reason this just kind of made it to the first place for me this month, is because it's just so me when it comes to the color story and the tones in here. And moving on from the tones, I thought the quality of these eyeshadows were really nice. The mattes especially blew me away. They are so insanely pigmented. They are so easy to apply and like build up. They're gorgeous. I really don't have any complaints about the matte. They blend like a dream. They're so easy to build up and they last all day on my eyes. I don't think I mentioned that, but with all these eyeshadow palettes today, none of them had any issues with fading or creasing in my eyes, and that is always a good day for me when I can find a palette that I don't have to worry about that with. These shimmers are a bit more hit or miss, not even hit or miss, but they're a bit more tricky. This green really reminded me of the Menagerie Cosmetics, their Feral palette, in that it's that formula that looks really gorgeous. It seems stunning when you apply it, but it can take a lot of back and forth to really build it up and apply it to your eyes. But that is really the only shadow that did it. These other ones, like the blue, the purple, especially this one, so intense, so colorful, so gorgeous. I'm going to be putting swatches up here because I just swatched this on my wrist and you guys are not going to be able to see that. But they're just so beautiful. I was so impressed with how they looked on the eyes. They didn't take a lot of work, I thought, to build up. They blended nicely. It was really easy to mesh them into the matte tones, which I always like because I like to get a really nice blend between the matte and the shimmer. I don't like harsh lines there. So overall, I was really impressed with this palette. They did a great job with this magnetic eyeshadow palette. I think it looks so nice and sleek. I love the design on it, and I'm glad I went ahead and just bought the whole kit together with the palette because they did a fantastic job with the quality of their products. Like Lethal Cosmetics, oh my goodness, I was blown away by how the products arrived to me. This palette itself is like very nicely built. The mirror is really nice. Like you could use this, it's not the biggest, but you can use this to do your makeup. Like it's not one of those weird mirrors. It says conform only to your own standards. They have a lot of cute little like sayings on everything. And oh, let me look, hang on. Okay, I almost forgot, but I actually saved this little thing that they, you know, put all of the single shadows into when they ship it out to you, because I wanted to show you guys how impressive this is. Now this is just a little card. Typically I feel like, especially with like indie brands, it's just like two little plastic pieces, or not plastic, but paper pieces that are together, like Makeup Geek even. And it has like a little plastic, you know, like this, it has a little plastic clear thing so you can see the color. You just pinch the two sides together and your shadow comes off. That's typically what I've seen single shadows arrive in. I think ColourPop, maybe ColourPop, I'm not 100% sure, but most of the ones that I've tried. But this is this little compartment here. You flip it open. They have this little saying that says, kindness is a currency best spent lavishly. Really cute, just a little touch of something. I thought that was nice. And then you kind of go up here and you have to open this. And from here, you slide out the shadow. There's a little tab for you to pull out the shadow. And then on this little thing, which is where the, I'm not going to grab it out because I don't want to dig my fingers into, but the shadow would sit here. It says, you found a secret area, and this is a magnet. So your shadow is like in there. I was so impressed. They put a magnet in here to ship it to you, and I just was very impressed. I just felt like that was such, like they took so much care to make sure that your little shadow arrived safely to you and didn't, like, you know, fall around inside the little, you know, sleeve or get crushed or anything like that. It was securely in there with that magnet and then wrapped up really nicely and just protected. And I was just blown away by the quality. Good on Lethal Cosmetics because they blew me away with their quality and attention to detail and just all the cute little notes that they have in there. I think that's so cute. And then on the back end of it, of course, has all the information with the ingredients. They're cruelty-free and vegan, 24-month shelf life, and a couple little bits of information. They also say, store in a cold and dark place, ... like your soul. I don't know, just those little things crack me up, and I just found myself chuckling, and I appreciated that. I thought that was a cute little something that they didn't have to put on there, but they took that time to produce that product, and I felt so bad throwing them all away, so that's why I had to keep one to show you guys, so at least it came, you know, I repurposed it somehow by showing you guys. But yeah, if you buy from Lethal Cosmetics, they're a solid brand. I'm very impressed. They are definitely going to stay on my radar, and I'm going to like look at their future releases because they release some solid, well-made products that I absolutely love. Alright, so there you have it. That is my palette palooza for March. I hope you guys enjoyed it. 4 palettes. It seems weird that I only got 4 palettes done this past month, but I got to spend a lot of extra time with these palettes. I feel like I created more look than I typically do with palettes, and I feel like I needed it for these palettes, either because I was enjoying them so much, or I needed a couple extra pictures, or I needed to work with the formula a little bit more, whatever the case may be. But I had a lot of fun, and I was able to also revisit another palette. I pulled back this Alamar Cosmetics in my last Shop My Stash, and I was able to create like 2 looks with it before the end of the month, and I really enjoyed that. It was kind of nice to be able to try new products, but then also have an older product in my Shop My Stash for me to pull for on the days when maybe I didn't want to create a new look, maybe I didn't want something super colorful. It was just a nice I don't know, it was nice to revisit, and I definitely think that's something I will continue doing in the future. But anyway, I hope these reviews were helpful to you guys. I hope the swatches are helpful as always, and the eye looks that I was able to create. But anyway, overall, I hope my review was thorough and helpful enough for you guys to be able to decide if any of these palettes are worth purchasing for yourself or not. But let me know your thoughts down below. Let me know if you tried any of these palettes, if you plan to get any of these palettes. I always love to hear. I always love to talk about palettes with you guys. But yeah, that's going to do it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you very soon in my next video. Bye guys.